Welcome to Ignite Your Confidence for women in leadership who want to speak up and stand out. I'm your host, Karen Laus. Here you'll get all of the tips and tools that you need to stand out with unshakable confidence. Let's dive into today's episode. Well, we have Erica here today. And oh my goodness, Erica, I have been waiting for this moment for a long
Oh
time
my
to be
god.
able to talk with you. So tell us about you.
Well, I'm so excited to talk to you, Karen. You are just one of my favorite people. So about me, you taught me to tell something professional, personal, and unique about me, right?
Yes.
So
Oh,
I I listen to what you say. I am a certified public accountant. So I'm an accountant by trade. I am a wife and a mother of two. My littles are 11 and 7. And 3 years ago, we moved to rural Idaho from Chicago.
I feel like we could have a whole episode on that. Okay, I want to know, as an accountant, how do you keep things interesting? Because you are such an interesting person and you give such great expert advice while making it fun and light. Tell us how you do that.
Oh, I decided to just be myself recently and stop trying to pretend to be who people thought I was supposed to be.
Wow. That right there, that's super powerful. Can we unpack that for a minute?
Sure. We're actually going to jump back to the Idaho stuff then.
Yeah, jump back. Let's talk about
Well,
that.
so this is, think this is recent, and I'm sure this is with everybody. Well, I like to think this is everybody, where we kind of have this thought of who we're supposed to be and how we're supposed to act based on what we do. And I don't know if you've noticed it, but accountants are quite boring people.
I wasn't gonna say anything.
I think I wore this professional persona in my corporate life. And we all know how to play, we all know how to play the game. And I played the professional game for a number of years. And we actually, and this is getting more personal, we moved to Idaho, to my husband's hometown 3 years ago. And I'm from Chicago, big city, big suburb girl. And we live in literally a town where they grow the potatoes and the wheat and barley for beer. And we're surrounded by cows and nothing. I live in this tiny town and I am different than everybody, Karen. I'm just, I'm not like them. I love them. They're lovely. They're my friends, but like, it's a different culture and I'm different.
Give us an example.
Nope. Hold on. Let me think of an appropriate example. I was going to say nobody in my town drinks, Karen. But you can edit that out later. But I live in a highly LDS Mormon Latter-day Saint community. I
Oh,
I am not LDS. My husband is not LDS. And a lot of my friends are LDS and I love them. They're lovely, but we have different cultures in our life,
right.
Nobody wants to have coffee talk with me, and nobody wants to go out for happy hour. And it just, moving here made it very aware that that groups of, like, I am just different. I'm different than how other people live, and it was really eye-opening moving here. Like, Karen, the first time I live in a conservative town. The first time I went to the swimming pool, I show up with my kids and I'm in what I would consider a conservative 2-piece bikini from Chicago. And I take off my cover up and it's, I got kids. So you have a swimsuit that's going to stay in place. And so I, by Chicago standards, I'm in a conservative 2-piece. And I take my cover off and I look up at the pool and I realize I'm the only person in a 2-piece. And a lot of the women are wearing like board shorts and longer sleeves. And it was this moment where I was like, it was probably the second week we lived here. And I thought, I'm so not where I belong.
Wow.
And it was, and let me reiterate, my friends are lovely here. It's just a different culture. And it was just an eye-opening experience that, like, you stand out, Erica. Like, you're different here. I wasn't different where I came from, but I was different here. And it
Mm-hmm.
was this long, year-long process of wrestling with, how do I fit in? And like, Karen, I don't fit in. Like, if I'm me, I don't fit the mold.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me a whole year to come to terms with, you just have to be you, Erica, and they're gonna like you or they're not gonna not like you. And you just have to keep your chin up and be you, because that's the only person you're gonna be okay with being.
Wow. That's really powerful. That makes me emotional.
I did not know we were gonna talk about this today, Karen.
I love it when things come out because this is what it's about. It's those vulnerable moments. So,
Mhm.
how did you do that? Like, can you give us a progression of maybe a something that happened that you made that decision?
Mm. I think I just got so tired of trying, like
Mm,
trying to be somebody you're not, or trying not to show the pieces that were you. And I don't know. It was just these like day by day activities. I don't know. I feel like I'm talking about Karen. At one time, so I go to a monthly book club. I go to a monthly book club. I'm the only non LDS woman there, usually. I didn't know you could have a book club without wine. But they read the books and I love them. And it's such a good group of women. We read the books, there's desserts, there's loveliness. And one time I was leaving and I jokingly, because I like to keep it light, Karen. One
Yes.
time as I'm leaving, I go, ladies, this was the most sober fun I've ever had. And they all, and it came out of my mouth because I just make jokes. And I thought, oh no, they're either gonna love me or hate me for saying that. And they all just laughed.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, they laughed at me being me. And it felt very accepted and it felt very safe. And um and honestly, nobody has ever made me feel different in this town.
Mm,
Um, it's me who I've never been a minority anywhere. But if you're just listening to this, I'm a white woman. I've rarely been a minority anywhere, maybe in a boardroom where it's full of men.
mhm.
Um, and feeling like a minority, I've never felt that, is very weird. I didn't know I would ever feel like that. And obviously that's a very unique situation I'm in, and it's a different type of minority. It's a kind of a religious cultural minority.
Mm.
Um, but I felt I was the one feeling different. Nobody was making me feel like, they were all so nice to me always. And it was me being self-conscious of who I was in the arena.
Wow. I'm thinking back to when you took off or when you, yeah, took off your shirt in the pool area. Not took off the shirt in
Karen, we're talking about drinking and taking off shirts
I
today.
know. Drinking, shirts, LDS. It's like, okay, somehow these things don't seem to go together. But I think what's really striking is what you've mentioned now, just emphasized a couple of times here, is that it was you. It's not as if anybody ever made you feel a certain way. And so, for example, when you first talked about the suit, I thought like everybody was looking at you as if you,
No.
what? So it wasn't even that they were staring at you. It was simply
Mm-mm.
noticing that you're different.
Yeah, it was a complete self-consciousness of myself.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone that is in a certain situation where they are perhaps hiding the real them or they are holding back because they're afraid of not being accepted?
Somebody once told me, you have to be the real you, because the people looking for you are trying to find you. And if you're not acting like yourself, they're not going to find you.
Wow.
And it was such clearly a memorable quote, because it was just so much permission to be yourself, because there's somebody out there looking for who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And actually just yesterday, I had a client call. I meet with my clients monthly, and this woman who hired me 3 months ago, and we've, kind of gotten through the initial stages of getting used to each other and kind of building that relationship. And yesterday she got on the call and she said, "Do you know why we hired you?" And, in my mind, because I'm a CFO, I'm a CPA, I can get your accounting, money stuff at your company. And she goes, we hired you because when I found you on LinkedIn, you were smart, punchy, and funny."
Oh,
And I was taken aback, because that has nothing to do with debits or credits, Karen. And it was just such an honest, like, it was so incredible that I'm like, oh my gosh, people aren't hiring or building relationships necessarily because of that skill set you bring, because the truth is there's at least 100 other people that they could have hired that have my skill set,
yep.
but there's only one me.
Mm-hmm.
And what she told me was she hired me because of me, not because of my skill set. Not that I don't have the skill set, but that wasn't her tipping point.
Yeah. That in and of itself is really powerful. That makes me tear up right there too, because
Oh man.
there are so many people that are hiding their true selves.
Yeah.
And exactly what you said. And if we think about how people make buying decisions, it's about that know, like, and trust factor.
Yeah.
And we do want somebody that stands out. And typical accountants do come across as boring. They might not be boring, or maybe they are, I don't know. But the important thing of what we're talking about here is that you really decided to be yourself. And
Yeah.
it sounds like that is paying off.
You know what? It's so much easier to be yourself. You don't
Mm,
have to try as hard.
yeah, isn't that the truth?
Mhm.
What would you say is the biggest thing that you have learned from leaving corporate to going out on your own?
It's not a straight path. We think that everything is going to be slowly and gradually up and to the right, as we say in the finance world, like a graph that grows up and to the right. And in reality, it is that meme of that squiggly jumbled up line in between. And we're still going up and to the right, but there sure is a lot of detours and figuring it out and learnings, and also getting comfortable with yourself and the confidence that you have what you need to do the work that you've been called to do.
Mhm. Well, and you started a new podcast recently, which is phenomenal. I love to hear more about your own confidence related to that. In what way has that helped you with your confidence, or just simply what have you learned from starting that?
Yeah. Well, I think going into the podcast, which has been so fun, by the way,
Oh,
is,
good.
um, you know, podcasting's fun. You get to make up your own rules. There's no set rules. You can have interviews. You don't have to have interviews. You can talk for an hour. You can talk for 5 minutes. And I think going in with that mindset of that foundation of the confidence of I'm just going to be me,
Mhm.
in taking my skill set and layering that on top of it has been really fun, to be able to tell stories that have nothing to do with money.
So one of the things that I would love to know in your field is, why is it so hard, do you think, for women to talk about money?
You know what? I'm gonna detour a little bit. I think women maybe don't have the confidence about money, but they talk more about it than men.
Ooh. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So I'll use my own marriage as an example. One time we used to live in a neighborhood with a little lake in the neighborhood, and the kids would go splash in it. And so we walked over to the lake one time, and our kids and the neighbor kid and the neighbor husband and wife were all there. And me and the other wife are just standing in the lake. And all of a sudden she's like, "Hey, I have a question on my 401k." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And she was like, "I have $40,000 in an old employer 401k. And I don't know if I should roll that over," and she started talking about, and we just had a nice conversation about what you should do with an old company 401k. And we're walking home, and my husband goes, "Why were you talking to her about her 401k?" And I was like, "'Cause she asked, and I like talking about money." And he was like, "Oh, that was kind of weird." And I was like, I never would have thought that that was weird. And I
Mm,
think there is this, I think there's I think women have a leg up on their comfort of talking about money. And
hmm.
I think comfort and confidence are two different things.
Ooh,
Yeah. And
keep going.
so, yeah, well, no, and similarly, like I went on a girls' trip last year, and we sat on the couch at 10 p.m. at night, and everybody talked about money. We talked about stock options and how to save money on tax. It was all this and it was a very organic talk about money conversation.
Yeah.
And I don't think men are sitting around at poker nights talking about their 401ks and their mortgage payments and all of this. And I don't know where that comes from, but though we might not have the confidence, I think we have an upper hand in the amount we're willing to talk about it
Mhm.
and ask for help.
Ah,
Because here's the thing, I think on average, men and women are equally skilled at money. And men have overconfidence about it,
mm.
and women have underconfidence about it. But beneath the surface, we all have the same education, and we all have the same amount of knowledge about it. And men just portray it as they know everything. Let me tell you how it is. Well, they don't really know how it is. I work with men too. They don't really know how it is. They're faking it. And women undershoot themselves and think they know less than they actually do.
Mhm.
But I think they're also willing to ask for more help.
Hmm.
Similar to being in a car and asking for directions.
Oh,
The women get there faster because they ask for more help.
sure. That's a really fascinating difference.
Yeah.
And I love the distinction of comfort and confidence. What do you think it is about women asking for money? Do you think that's different? Things like asking for a promotion or asking for more money with a client or simply bringing up their fees for those people listening that are entrepreneurs.
Mhm. I think it's confidence. I think that's a tough. I don't. Men are so good at asking for more money. Women are so bad at it in general.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I I don't know where that comes from inside of us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Can I tell you a story about my daughter?
Yes.
My daughter, she's older now, but when she went to kindergarten, now she had been in daycare all through her life. She went to kindergarten about, let's see, November, December. Kindergarten teacher emails me, says, your daughter doesn't know her ABCs. So we're going to give her some additional resources. Not just being a little defensive, but as a mama bear, I was like, absolutely wrong. She knows her ABCs. Like, this kid has been in daycare her whole life. She knew her ABCs at 3.
Yeah.
And she's, well, she doesn't know her ABCs. And I was like, Riley, come into the kitchen. And she's like, what? You know what, Mom? And I'm like, sit down at the table. So we're sitting at this little blue kid IKEA table. And I go, okay, here, sit here. I'll be right back. and I go and I grab a pack of M&Ms and I pour the M&Ms out on the table, and her eyes get really wide. And then I take out a deck of ABC flashcards, like Dr. Seuss, every card has a different letter. And I say, okay, I'm gonna flip over a letter, and as long as you say a letter, you get an M&M. And she goes, well, what if I get it wrong? And I said, I don't care if you get it wrong or not. As long as you say a letter, it can be a guess, you get an M&M. She's like, oh, okay. I flipped over that whole deck. She knew every single letter in that deck. I called back the teacher and I said, she doesn't have an ABC problem. She has a confidence problem. Tell her it's okay if she's wrong.
Oh,
And I think how much of that 5-year-old is living inside of all of us, that we're just afraid to be wrong.
oh my gosh. Giving me all the tears today. That's so powerful.
Yeah. And I think with money, I think that's with women and money. I think a lot of times we're afraid that we're going to be wrong. And so we don't say anything. We say, I don't know. I don't know I don't know if it's an H or an N. I don't know if it's an S or a T. But if you're like, it's okay, just try. It turns out we don't have a education problem. We just have a confidence problem.
Wow. Well, that's a drop the mic moment right there, Erica. Like, where do we go from here? That is so good. Oh my goodness. So how's she doing now, your daughter?
So with my daughter, because the teacher just saw what the teacher saw, and so they gave her extra help in kindergarten. And because she didn't actually need the extra help, but she got extra attention. She wound up like jumping light years ahead in the next grade on her reading, because she got such dedicated attention because they had given her extra help.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. So that's a cute. Yeah. She's doing great now. She's 11. She is a fantastic reader.
That's so cool.
Yes.
And did she laugh at that story or did you share that? Have you shared that with
I don't think I told her until about last year that had happened.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure if I don't know that I never told her.
Okay. Yeah.
I didn't want to put it in her head.
Yeah.
If I told her, it was like a nothing.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, I think that's just fantastic what you taught her in that moment and are teaching all of us listening, because it's so powerful what you shared. And so many of us hold back, and because of that fear of failure or just not being perfect. And that's such a big part of my story personally, and also what I stand for around helping women to have the tools to be able to speak up, and to also recognize that when we mess up, it doesn't really matter as much as it feels like a game changer to us on the game changer, meaning the opposite of game changer, and how powerful it is to simply look at it differently from a frame of mind perspective.
Mm-hmm. I think we think this, especially when it comes to asking for more money. Say you're in a corporate setting where you're asking for a raise or negotiating a higher salary. Our brains stop at like, what happens after I say, no, I want 10,000 more. And we think that the world's going to end when we ask that. When in reality, the other side of it is we're going to say, oh, I don't want 90,000, I want 100,000. And they're either going to say yes or no. They're not going to think you're a terrible person. Like you can't fail. You're just getting an answer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, what would you say has lent let me back up. What would you say has been the biggest contributor for your success or to your success?
Following my heart, not doing what the program is prescribed to do for accountants, and not just doing the next thing that everybody else does because that's what a 26-year-old accountant does. That's what a 30-year-old accountant does.
Mm-hmm.
Just going with my heart and trusting that I can't screw it up that bad. You know, it's okay if I'm wrong. I'm going to get the M&M. It's okay if I'm wrong. Go for it.
I love that. That should be the title of this episode. I'm going to get Well, where can we find you, Erica? How can people reach out? Well, let me ask before that, is there anything that I haven't asked that you would like me to ask or that you'd like to add?
Oh, gosh, I feel like we hit a whole bunch of things I didn't know we were going to talk about, Karen. This was so good.
I love it.
I think we put it all on the table with those M&Ms.
Yes, I agree. Well, tell us where we can reach you.
Yes. So you can find me. I like to hang out on Instagram and also on LinkedIn. And you can find me on my website at ericagoode.com.
Love it. And tell us the name of your podcast.
Oh, the name of my podcast is Coaches, Consultants, and Money. And it is not as boring as it sounds.
I can vouch for that. It's fun and informative. That's
Yes.
fantastic. Well, thanks for being here, Erica. And really, thanks for sharing your heart with us. You moved me more than once. And
oh, thanks, Karen, for having me.
of course, really powerful, really powerful. So I hope every woman that's listening to this or anybody else that they feel inspired and empowered, because you definitely empowered me today.
Oh, thanks, Karen. It was so wonderful to be here.
And that's a wrap of another episode of Ignite Your Confidence. I'm your host, Karen Louse. Thank you so much for listening. If you loved today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review. It helps other people find the podcast faster, and it certainly helps me. If you're interested in more tips and tools around confidence, please join me over in my Facebook group called Ignite Your Confidence with Karen Louse. Remember, you too can stand out with unshakable confidence.